Hello there. For this module and for this presentation, I decided to take an angle on search and seizure. I feel like this is a great topic, and hopefully that this assignment can create a great tool that I can use this with future in-services and actually, hopefully, beginning of the next school year, because I feel at times sometimes I'm not completely understanding of what our administrative rights were, and as well as my own in regards to at times as a physical education teacher, I've used some of these rights to search physical education lockers and so forth. So I've scripted my presentation to be set in that format to where possibly we're using this for education of our teachers at our high school. Search and seizure, what you need to know. First off, as teachers and administration are building, you need to understand your rights and the students' rights. This is scripted under the Fourth Amendment. Fourth Amendment provides protection of all citizens against unreasonable search and seizure. These students at our school also enjoy many of these same constitutional rights. When we are looking at our students' rights, we have to understand that there is a line between balance and reason. We must be able to balance our students' rights under the Fourth Amendment versus what our duty as staff and administration is to provide a safe and secure environment. In understanding this, we need to understand that a reasonable search is a search that does not violate the student's constitutional rights. As we look deeper into this and we talk today, you'll learn more about what is reasonable and what is not, and what provides reasonable. We first need to look at reasonable suspicion. As staff, we only need reasonable suspicion to initiate a search. This will not violate their Fourth Amendment rights, but in looking into this, we have to understand that these facts and this reasonable suspicion needs to be based first off on information received from students or teachers that is reliable. Make sure that you have a reliable source, someone who is credible, and not a boy that cries wolf, etc., or possible types of vendettas. This has to be reasonable from reliable informants. These informants need to be known and not anonymous. You're not allowed to. A reasonable action is not an anonymous note that so-and-so did this, so-and-so does that. The informant needs to be known, and the search needs to be on an individual basis and not a group as a whole. For example, you are not allowed to say if an item was stolen in your classroom to search all 30 students in your classroom. It needs to be based on an individual basis. School property, first personal searches. Very important to understand these two concepts. We're going to look further into what constitutes school property, and then we'll look at the end at personal searches because those are those can be very dangerous situations. School property is often of greater ease to search compared to a personal search. So let's look at what is school property. First off, our students' desks. Students' desks, you're allowed to search by reason, not by hunch, as stated earlier. Please make sure you follow written policies. And as a district and administration, we are going to make sure that all students, as well as parents, are aware that desks are subject to search if reasonable suspicion is established. Please make sure you follow school policy as well as reasonable suspicion, as we have stated before. Along with student desks are also student lockers. Very similar to desk protocol, student lockers do provide some form of privacy to students, a little bit more than desks, so oftentimes they can be a source of harboring. Students will, as we stated before with desks, are going to be informed that lockers are school property and can be subject to search with reasonable suspicion. The student will be on hand for the search, and the affected student should open the locker in the presence of the school official during the search. Again, follow school policy and the reasonable suspicion protocols. With these two situations, with student desks as well as student lockers and the upcoming two, it's going to be very important that us as staff and district and administration, that our students and parents are aware that these are school property and can and will be subject to search. Next is book bags. Book bags do tend to become more complicated than desks and lockers. As we stated earlier, to ease this, all students and parents are going to be informed that book bags can be subject to search at any time during the school day, school travels, or on school property. A lot of times this will be because of student safety. to make sure that there is not, you know, propaganda or items that they should not have during the school day or travel for school functions. Administration, along with, similar to the lockers, will have a student on hand during the search. And again, we will follow school policy as well as reasonable suspicion for any of these searches. Lastly, is automobiles. Vehicles in the school parking lot are on school property and hold the same same similarities as desks, lockers, and book bags, and can be subject to search based on reasonable suspicion. Vehicles not on school property will need probable cause, and law enforcement will be required to present a warrant prior to the search. Parents will be informed of any impending search, and lastly, again, we will follow school policy and reasonable suspicion. As a school district, it is important that we try to handle as much of this as we can internally by prior communication and creating the environment for our students that they are aware that we are there to protect them and we are there to keep them safe. And that is what these searches were for and why they do occur. Now that we've looked at school property, we do need to look at personal searches. Personal searches are strongly discouraged by staff. You must have overwhelming evidence to justify, and you must have a sense of urgency. If the search must become intrusive, the student's rights must be protected. Again, this is for school safety and emergency-based situations. Personal searches should be a last resort. Follow school policy and reasonable suspicion. Now, some questions might ask about personal searches and what constitutes an emergency. We ask that all of you as staff and administration err on your common sense and your background to constitute what is an emergency, and we will go further into that later. Finally, some final guides to follow and important just tidbits to remember before we leave today. Understand that students' freedom, the difference with students' freedom versus school safety and order. As long as you keep school safety and order with reasonable cause, you will not violate their Fourth Amendment rights. Take into consideration a student's age, history, and behavior history. The search must be based on reasonable grounds, as stated before. Information leading to school searches should be independent of involvement by law enforcement officials. Searches involving law enforcement must be accompanied by a warrant. Avoid personal searches except where danger exists. Conduct all searches in a private setting with that student present. If it is a locker search, do not do it during open passing time. Book bag search, not in front of an entire class, etc. Conduct in a private setting with one or two other observers. Pat downs, if justified or needed, should be done by personnel of same gender with an adult witness of the same gender present. Arbitrary searches or mass searches and shakedowns cannot be justified as reasonable and are illegal. Again, you must have reasonable suspicion. Lastly, follow school policy and reasonable suspicion. As we finish here at this time, I hope that we have some questions so we can go a little bit further about how this applies to us and at our high school. Thank you. Final thoughts?